severe weather is blowing up, and it'll continue to blow up for at least the next 2 days here. Looking at for some severe weather across the southern plains today as well. Watching out for Dixie Alley for tomorrow, as conditions are definitely there to sustain possibly a multi-day severe weather outbreak here. We have a very large area of risk for today, with a very large enhanced risk across the central United States here, with a 10% for tornadoes in Oklahoma and Texas, and as well watching for a very large area, possibly watching out for some tornadoes tomorrow across Dixie Alley here. But without further ado, let's get into the forecast. So far today has been very active for portions of Georgia and the Carolinas here, but this severe weather as we go throughout the evening and afternoon will become a lot more widespread. Now starting to see some severe weather across portions of the Midwest, and as well starting to see some severe weather blowing up now across the southern plains, but really watching out for these areas later this afternoon and evening here. But as of now, we do have a pretty large area of a tornado watch from portions of south central North Carolina throughout central South Carolina and make its way into far eastern Georgia, just kind of near the Savannah River. And that's exactly where we do have a pretty hot spot there for some severe thunderstorm warnings here. As well, we do now a few severe thunderstorm warnings within these watches, or embedded within these watches here, all over the United States here, including Alabama, Illinois, New Mexico, and of course Georgia and South Carolina here as well. Starting to see some widespread areas of severe thunderstorm watches. We have a very large one from Mississippi there throughout much of Alabama, and as well much of central and the Piedmont region of Georgia, as well. Starting to see some good amounts of severe thunderstorm watches there for portions of north and eastern portions there of Missouri, including St. Louis, and as well much of western and central Illinois, including Springfield as well, now under a severe thunderstorm watch. And the other portion there near the south central and southern plains of the United States, starting to see some watches as well, kind of just to the south there of Lubbock, Texas, kind of right there in that far southern portion of the Panhandle and southeastern New Mexico. That's what we have so far. But let's go ahead and look at the what we have so far on day one. Let's go ahead and look at the severe weather reports and see what we have seen so far today. So this is a look at the latest day one outlook, and as you see, a lot of the eastern and central United States it has some type of risk for some severe weather. So we're starting to really feel the effects of us getting into May here. I mean, ever since we've gone into May, we've seen such widespread severe weather here. I mean, we had an enhanced risk yesterday for Colorado, Nebraska, and portions of Kansas. I mean, we're starting to see these May effects here. So Marshall is in effect for 55 million people, including Chicago, San Antonio, Columbus, Ohio, Austin, Texas, and Washington, D.C. So very widespread severe thunderstorms as a result of the very warm temperatures and overall pretty good conditions across the United States here. So we're going to start seeing some scattered thunderstorms here within that marginal risk. But let's now go ahead and look at the slight risk here. And boy, it's been really busy so far for this area of the United States here. And they are under a slight risk. This level 2 out of 5 does include around 42.5 million people. We have our first slight risk really was over here when it was actually day 3, and then yesterday I believe last night we got a slight risk issue for Georgia and portions of South Carolina, and ever since this slight risk has extended, and so that's really showing you how the confidence for severe weather has continued to rise and become more widespread here. So again, slight risk is included around 42.5 million people, including big cities like Indianapolis, Memphis, Charlotte, Nashville, and Atlanta. Speaking of Atlanta, they did get a tornado earlier today, actually in the, I believe, like late morning. It was something pretty concerning here since I'm kind of northeast of the metro area. And then, of course, the enhanced risk has just gone extended here for Oklahoma and Texas, as we do have a pretty concerning threat for some tornadoes. But this enhanced risk all the way from northeastern Texas to portions of the Ohio River Valley there. So this includes around 11 million people, all the way from Dallas, Texas, and DFW, all the way up into areas basically near Paducah, Kentucky there, as well in areas near Poplar Bluff, southern and southeastern Missouri. But in general, this includes Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington, Plano, and Garland, and as well includes areas like Little Rock, Fayetteville, Arkansas, Jonesboro, Arkansas, Poplar Bluff, Missouri, and I believe just outside of Paducah, Kentucky here. But let's go ahead and look at the probability for tornadoes. And you see, we're seeing a pretty widespread threat for tornadoes in general across the United States, specifically the eastern United States. And of course, we do a little small, narrow 5% chance across Georgia and South Carolina. And that's where we've seen all our tornadoes so far today. But that'll most likely change here within the next few hours, as we now have a new 10% chance significant severe risk for tornadoes, so a pretty big jump, and that's why we have an enhanced risk for today here. So looking at back-to-back enhanced risk for today and tomorrow. So the overall 10% chance actually is all under a significant severe risk here, but and you see 1.3 million people, including that just general 10%, which includes Plano, Texas, Denton, Texas, Allen, Texas, Frisco, Texas, and the Colony, Texas, so kind of right there in far north central outside DFW, and of course for the suburbs of southeastern Oklahoma there. And then the significant severe risk includes less than a million people, 809,000. This includes Denton, Allen, Frisco, Sherman, and Denison. So if you're in any of those cities I just named right now, you guys are under the 10% chance significant severe risk. So I definitely have a plan set up here. This 5% chance includes around 27 million people. So we could see some scattered widespread tornadoes today. There's definitely a probability for some in Illinois, possibly some in Kentucky, but the main area to really watch out is going to be Georgia and South Carolina, but that'll kind of die off as many of these storms are kind of moving to the east here. But this has been the hot spot so far for the past few hours since the morning, and this will be the new hot spot for the evening hours and overnight here. But overall, pretty concerning as we see up to 50 million people in the 2% chance for tornadoes. So even if you're not in the 5 or 10% and you're only the 2% chance, I would still take caution, because again, at 2% chance is still a probability, even though it's on the lower side. Of course, we still have a pretty large enhanced risk going all the way down there near Dallas is because of the wind threat, 30% chance significant severe risk. This significant severe risk actually includes 9.9, basically 10 million people, including DFW, Arlington, Plano, Texas, Garland, as well as areas like Little Rock into portions of near the Poplar Bluff area as well, kind of just outside of the big regions such as Memphis. This 30% chance in general includes around 8.2 million people. So it includes DFW, Plano, Garland, Irving, and Little Rock, as well, including areas such as, I believe, just outside Memphis there and just outside Paducah. There's 50% chance, very widespread, of course, 41.4 million people. Those two large areas across one, the central United States and Midwest, and then one, of course, for the southeastern United States. And overall, those all add up to 41 million people. So overall, just widespread severe weather. That's going to obviously bring the widespread threat for tornadoes, wind, and hail. The hail threat's going to be, again, a big threat across Oklahoma and DFW. So if you're in DFW, another reason why you guys are under the enhanced risk is because of the hail probability. We're seeing some pretty good lapse rates overall to sustain some pretty large hail. As we've seen for the past few weeks here, when we kind of started to see that severe weather kind of near the plains, a lot of the hail has kind of maintained as far west as possible because the lapse rates have been really sustained or more favorable in the plains and Tornado Alley here. That's why the probability for hail is a lot lower into areas like Dixie Alley and areas near the Midwest here. But we do have a pretty widespread significant severe risk, including a 15% chance significant severe and a 30% chance significant severe. So every single person in that 30% chance red is under the significant severe. That includes around 6.5 million people, DFW, Arlington, Plano, and Garland, and of course those areas in southeastern Oklahoma. And of course the general significant severe risk includes an additional 3 million people as a result of including areas like Arkansas, much of north central Texas, and as well further into eastern Oklahoma here. But let's now go ahead and look at the storm reports that we've seen so far today. So this is the latest report here and what we've had so far today. Let me actually refresh and make sure this is up to date. So yeah, we've had so far 4 tornadoes today. 3 of them have been in Georgia, 2 of them just outside of Metro Atlanta, and another one there into portions of southeastern South Carolina, northwestern South Carolina here. And this one, I believe, was PDS-4. So far we've had total 30 reports, 4 tornadoes, 16 wind reports, all scattered across the eastern United States. You can kind of see a lot of these reports are in the eastern United States here, but wait till we get the next few hours, and we're going to start seeing a ton of reports coming from the Midwest and for the plains here. But as well, 10 hail reports. We've actually seen a couple there near Illinois and Missouri, as well the rest there in Georgia and South Carolina. But let's go ahead and look at the latest report there. So we've had, again, we had one tornado near Douglas County there, And then we had one near Fulton, one in Fulton County, which is where Atlanta is. That's 2 miles west of Sandtown. So we actually did have a partial collapse of an apartment there near Fulton Industrial Boulevard, and as well another one there for Greenwood, South Carolina, near just outside of Greenwood, South Carolina. But we actually did see a tornado warning there for Atlanta earlier today, and there was a confirmed tornado on the western side of the metro. So it did not go straight through Atlanta, but there was technically a tornado technically in Atlanta here, and of course that's what we had so far. This is what we've had so far today, and this is actually what we saw yesterday. Pretty actually, definitely shocking numbers. What we've seen yesterday, 29 tornadoes reported yesterday. I mean, look at Mississippi. I mean, absolutely hammered. Did not expect that at all. And let's just hope this does not happen for these areas. Let's just hope that does not happen, because I mean the conditions actually are a lot better now than what they were yesterday. So let's go ahead and keep a very close eye on Oklahoma and Texas and even portions of Arkansas. Here's a look now at day 2, which is going to be tomorrow. I think tomorrow as well going to be pretty concerning here. Very large enhanced risk, including now 11 million people, which is including all the way from north central and central Tennessee down to central Louisiana, and actually getting very, very close to Atlanta, Georgia. So tomorrow going to kind of be more focused towards Dixie Alley and as well for portions of the Appalachian Mountains. So this enhanced risk does include areas like Nashville, Birmingham, Baton Rouge, Montgomery, and Jackson, Mississippi there. So not good to see another risk for severe weather for Mississippi. This enhanced risk here, and as we just got over 20 tornadoes in the state alone yesterday, so definitely very concerning, specifically for areas like Tupelo, Yazoo City, and Jackson, which got hit very, very hard yesterday. So definitely keeping very close eye on those areas as more severe weather is on the way here. As well, slight risk includes around 23 million people, all the way from the Gulf Coast, Mississippi and Alabama, all the way up into the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia and Kentucky there. So we actually do have Memphis, New Orleans, Atlanta, Louisville, and Lexington, Fayette, Kentucky. You guys are the many big cities that are under the slight risk and marginal risk as well, pretty widespread from the Gulf Coast, the Great Lakes, including around 55 million people. So going to be seeing overall another big day of widespread severe weather. As of now, we're kind of sticking around for the 5% chance for tornadoes, but I would definitely not rule out the possibility if a 10% chance is issued. I mean, that's definitely not out of the possibility, and it cannot be ruled out at all. So if anything, a 10% chance can very well be issued for Mississippi and Alabama. So keep a very close eye if you are in those areas. 11.2 million people included in that 5% chance, including Nashville, Birmingham, Baton Rouge, Montgomery, and Jackson, and a 2% chance from tornadoes all the way from the Gulf Coast to up to near central Ohio and portions of West Virginia. So overall, another widespread threat for some scattered tornadoes. Wind threat is the reason why we had this enhanced risk in the first place, because of the big wind threat. I mean, we're talking about a very, very intense squall line to move in this area here, and a big threat as well why we could very well see a 10% chance for tornadoes is because there could be some supercells embedded within the line of storms. So 30% chance includes around 11 million people, Nashville, Birmingham, Baton Rouge, Montgomery, and Jackson. There's the big cities here that are impacted, and a 50% chance significant. Again, the hail threat tends to be to the far west of the risk here, and that's including their Mississippi, there, Alabama, Texas, Arkansas, and Tennessee. And yeah, this is basically what we're seeing here for hail threats, though. Significant severe. 6 million people, Memphis, Jackson, Lafayette, and Lake Charles and Jackson. You guys are the threat here, not Jackson. Or both Jackson, Mississippi, and Jackson, Tennessee. There, you guys are under that significant severe risk for hail. And then a 50% chance in general includes 14.2 million people. And that's basically what we have so far for tomorrow. Definitely things could very well change here, but let's go ahead and look at the models. So here's a look now at the HRRR here, 18Z latest update. Here's what we have so far. So again, we are starting to see currently at the moment some severe storms there across the Midwest, and specifically some severe storms there across Georgia, the Carolinas, and Alabama. But let's go ahead and look at the next few hours here again. Like I did say, these storms are going to start blowing up there across Texas and the western portion of where we have that risk for some severe weather. We're going to still see some embedded cells here, discrete cells mainly across Dixie Alley between now and into the overnight hours here. But let's go ahead and look at 7 o'clock here Central Time. That's when we start seeing those main storms popping up across Texas, near areas near DFW. Again, really watching up the threat for some hail, and it looks like it could very well be an intense squall line here across Texas and Oklahoma by 11 o'clock here. So definitely a very big overnight threat for these areas. And as we continue now going to 1, 2 a.m. here, these are going to be some really intense winds here and possibly some definitely some pretty big threats for some flash flooding across across western Arkansas, northeastern Texas, and as well. Really going to be really watching out for the kind of deep overnight hours, maybe 10 to 11 o'clock here. Maybe some embedded supercells within the squall line, which is exactly why we have a 10% chance significant severe risk. And this severe weather will make its way towards portions of the Ohio River Valley and Kentucky, Tennessee Valley by tomorrow morning here. So that's why we still have that pretty widespread severe weather risk in general. But as we get into the late morning hours, that's when things start going downhill for Dixie Alley. You can kind of see possibly some embedded discrete cells here already in Georgia and Alabama by 10 a.m. And then we have that big wave right here that surge as a result of the very widespread variable conditions here, including the Cape and moisture, allowing for some more storms to blow up there across Texas and Louisiana. That's going to be the main system here by 3 o'clock. Really watching out for some embedded supercells across Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee here. Those can very well be the tornado producers with a big hail and wind right here in that major squall line across Alabama, Mississippi, and Alabama there into the mid-afternoon hours. By 6 o'clock here, some really big time wind threats and possibly wind damage across Alabama, Mississippi, and still really watching out for some embedded supercells within that squall line, which is definitely the threat for some tornadoes. We have that 5% chance, and of course, it should all kind of wrap up by around midnight here. But let's go ahead now and look at what we have for the Cape values. At the moment, we're seeing some really high Cape values across much of the south central United States. They're up to 5,200 joules per kilogram. But as of now, these Cape values, these high Cape values, will kind of stick around to the areas where we really won't get that much more severe weather today. As you see, we're really watching out for these areas today, but that's not until really much later in the next few hours here. But let's now go into look at the time frame of that severe weather starts to ramp up by possibly 9 o'clock across portions of Texas and Oklahoma. You can kind of see some really good Cape values still up to nearly 6,000 joules per kilogram. But as we go in the next few hours, we're starting to be seeing some decent numbers here, which is going to allow the threat for some severe storms across northwestern Texas, up to 2,000 to possibly as high as 3,000 joules per kilogram there into the north central Texas. But look at the really good conditions there across northeastern Texas, southeastern Oklahoma, and western Arkansas. You guys, really right now, you guys are currently sitting at around 3,000 to 4,000 joules per kilogram. But as we now go later on to around 8 o'clock Eastern, so 7 o'clock Central, we're going to get as high as 6,200 joules per kilogram. I mean, look at all this. I mean, very, very high Cape values as a result of the very warm temperatures, high humidity, very nice dew points overall, adding up to some very good amount of energy in the atmosphere. Or I guess energy that's being held in the atmosphere. But let's now go to around 9 to 10 o'clock here, which is when that severe weather starts to make its way towards these regions. You can kind of still see some really high values up to 3,000 to 4,000 plus joules per kilogram. So overall, Cape values are there. And of course, they're going to be there even all the way as far as Kentucky and Tennessee with over 3,000 joules per kilogram. So overall, definitely sustained to see some widespread severe weather. And as we go into tomorrow in the morning hours, 6 to 8 a.m., that's not severe weather made its way towards the Ohio River Valley, and of course, very low Cape values, less than 1,000, so nothing too crazy for those areas. But by 7 a.m. Eastern Time and 6 a.m. Central Time, already nearly 2,000 plus joules per kilogram, and actually nearly getting near 3,000 joules per kilogram already in Dixie Alley, and that's only in the morning hours. And as we now get later here, let me actually go toward the deep south real quickly, as we can kind of see. Let me actually get towards the 18, or let's go back to the 18Z very quickly here. You can kind of see by 9 in the morning, starting to see now 3,000 plus joules per kilogram there in the Gulf Coast. Kind of see a lot of that moisture kind of pushing in from the Gulf Coast, and then that's going to really allow for some unstable atmosphere as a result of that cold air in the upper atmosphere and that kind of warm and moist air in the lower atmosphere. As the updraft kind of lifts up here as a result of the very high Cape values, we're going to be seeing some pretty variable conditions for severe thunderstorms and overall some pretty good amounts of instability. By 11 in the morning here, getting nearly 4,000 joules per kilogram there near Louisiana and Mississippi. But overall, really widespread 2,000 to 3,000 plus joules per kilogram across Louisiana through Alabama and Mississippi there. As we now go into the kind of, I guess, early afternoon hours, that's when things are going to start getting really downhill. Getting already 4,000 plus joules per kilogram there across southeastern or just southern Louisiana and southern Mississippi there, and some widespread 2,000, 3,000 plus across much of the central portion of Dixie Island, including Alabama and Mississippi there, and as well as some pretty good numbers as far east as Georgia. That's going to kind of stick it around then until around 6 o'clock. You're going to be seeing kind of a big decrease in Cape Valley. So the big concern is going to be the afternoon hours here. But let's go ahead and look at the results of why these Cape Values are so darn high. It's because these temperatures, look at the temperatures right now we're currently seeing right now across the United States. See, look at that. Triple digits down there near the border of Texas and Mexico. But overall, really warm temperatures across the general areas of what we'll be watching for today and tomorrow. At least in the 80s there, and as well as high as the upper 90s across Texas. But that's going to really allow for a ton of everyday heating here, resulting in some really high Cape values. And by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, we're still seeing the upper 70s. So overall, overnight threat, it's going to be a concern here. And even by the, we're not gonna get past the 70s all night long in Dixie Island. So that's gonna really allow for the big threat for some extreme amounts of humidity there, and favorable conditions for some pretty significant severe weather throughout the afternoon hours here, getting to the 80s down there in the Gulf Coast, and as well as sitting the upper 70s there into the more northern areas. Let's go ahead and now look at the supersonic composite parameter. Let's start really watching out for some good numbers here by the next few hours across Oklahoma, getting already at 29 there on the scale. So really watching out for central Oklahoma, of course, southeastern Oklahoma, northeastern Texas for some supercells. By 10 o'clock here, really watching out for these areas, getting to the teens here for the supercell composite parameter. Maybe some numbers down there, and to central Texas getting in the upper teens, and as well, that's going to be the main area to watch out for near the northern border of Oklahoma. Northern border there near the Oklahoma region. So going to be really watching out for that area for the next few hours in the over evening, I guess, time frame. But of course, really watching out for tomorrow as well in the early afternoon, 2 o'clock, seeing some decent numbers there to possibly a 10 and maybe even as high as 16. Actually, no, as high as 25 there on the superset composite for Louisiana and Mississippi there. And of course, as we go later on, oops, I don't want to do that. As we go later on, that'll kind of be a threat there across Alabama and eventually making its way towards Georgia. And let's go ahead and last but not least, look at the significant tornado parameter as well as similar scenario there. Really watching out for in the next few hours across Texas and Oklahoma. We're going to get as high as possibly as 6 to 7 there, and maybe some widespread 3s and 4s kind of towards the Ozarks and Tennessee Valley. But that really won't be a big concern for those areas. And of course, going to be really watching out for some tornadoes tomorrow by 1 o'clock here, getting up to a 5 across Louisiana, some scattered as high as 6.6 across Mississippi there. And then going to get as high as possibly a 7 and maybe nearly almost an 8 there across Alabama across tomorrow here. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later.